G'day everyone, it's me, the anti-theocrat, back with another one. I thought I'd shake it up. I've made all these graphics and things up ready to do this production stuff. We might as well throw something else into the works, huh? Taking a look at something particularly stupid that has come back again. Apparently this has been revealed by the current situation. Ta-da! The conversation who claim to be about academic rigour and journalistic flair have written about the wage gap. Yes, the wage gap is back. Mind you, Professor of Sociology and Social Policy at University of Melbourne. This is an educated idiot with no idea how economics works, but she's got plenty of social justice. So she's written about the wage gap for us. COVID-19 has laid bare how much we value women's work and how little we pay for it. It has done nothing of the sort. The COVID-19 pandemic has turned our lives upside down amidst the upheaval. It was laid bare how little we normally pay for women's work. Women's work. I will note that her image here shows a female teacher. Now, when I went to school, anywhere up to half of my teachers were male. It is not because of men. It is not because it's women's work that you do not have male teachers. It is because the world we have created has shat on male teachers. I actually considered a couple of years ago going for my teaching degree. But when it boiled down to it, there's just fucking no way I'm facing that danger. I had a false accusation in a workplace where I was spending most of my day in an enviro suit. I had to have a powered air filter on the back of my suit to feed me air through the day, and I had to change the filter in that at least 3 times a day. Working in that environment, I got a bloody claim, a false claim against me for sexual harassment with some little bint that I was working with who decided that she didn't like something I'd said during a conversation over a smoko table. I never went near the little tart, and I never said anything of a sexual nature to her. But she didn't like something I said. We were talking about something that came up in my news feed on Facebook, and let's face it, we were just chatting. It wasn't anything serious. Yeah, she didn't like that, so I got a false claim. There's no fucking way I'm going near teaching. I don't understand why there's any guys left in that trade, but that's her example of a woman's trade. And no, it is not a woman's trade. You've just made it too fucking dangerous for men. Mind you, the number of teachers now coming out as fucking pedophiles, female teachers being reported as pedophiles worldwide. Why is this not a trade open to men? Fucking, if you're going to teach them with pedophiles, you might as well teach them with male ones as well. And no, I don't think that of teachers. I have high respect for teachers. It can't be an easy job to play with all our brats all day. COVID-19 pandemic has turned our lives up. Yeah, bollocks. Bullshit. And there's not even a reason why this is women's work. Even nursing has had more men in it in the past. Australia has a very low gender equality when it comes to remuneration. Bullshit. Bullshit. Ranking 49th in the World Economic Forum, Gender Participation and Opportunity Index 2020. Righto. So how many men are being invited into teacher? What? Because there's such a low number of male teachers, how much incentive is there for male teachers? Are there special programs to get male teachers into the fields? Because you're talking about the usual things, politics, STEM fields of science, engineering, well, just STEM field technically, but yes, you're going to talk about those at us, where there are special programs to get women into them. Are there any special programs to get men into nursing? I mean, some bulky-looking guys in nurses' outfits ready to lift patients couldn't be a bad thing, could it? How about In teaching, as I said, are there any special programs to get male teachers involved? Are there? Are there any special protections for male teachers that might prevent them being in any sort of danger from false claims and accusations? No, there's nothing. There's nothing to support men in getting into the trades that are primarily for women. These jobs like teaching are just turning over to women because the men are stepping away and you're just fucking letting them. Get fucked. Get fucked with a flying... A Gender Participation and Opportunity Index 2020. Now, that measures workforce participation, remuneration and advancement. Yes, let's talk about that, shall we? Let's talk about why women still choose more often to work part-time or casual and let their husbands go into the workforce full-time and provide them with a living. Why during the COVID-19 virus it has been the women who have been able to drop their jobs or have had part-time jobs that have disappeared, while the men have had full-time jobs and continued to work. Let's discuss that, shall we, Lynn, you stupid bint? Partly this is because paid women's work is more concentrated in the caring and service industries than men's work is more likely to be low-paid, casual and part-time. You know why that is? Because when I did my trade qualifications, I had to do a hell of a lot of study. I had to learn a hell of a fucking lot of technical information and keep that stored in my head so that I could go out and do my work. I then had to go into dangerous situations and work in dangerous situations. Compare that to a childcare worker who does a 1-year TAFE course. TAFE here in Australia is like a mini university. It's like college, I suppose. You do a 1-year TAFE course and you can enter into the field. And you can progress in the field by just being in the workforce for long enough. I had no such opportunity. To increase my qualifications, to advance in my job, I would have had to do more training, to climb higher in my trade. It's just not the fucking same. The fact that women work casual and part-time is a luxury they have at hand. While they can afford to expect men to work for them and support them, working casual and part-time is a privilege that they have. Being able to work low paid is a privilege that they have. Men will try to earn more through their lives because they have families to support, because as those families grow older, as they buy houses, property, whatever in the fuck it is they're doing with their lives, they will need more and stable income. And men will work for that. It is a privilege that women can work for low-paid industries, casual and part-time. This is not something that men have created. This is not something that society has created. We know that in the countries where there is the greatest gender disparity between the way men and women are expected to view their lives, live their lives, and where there is poverty, men and women are much more equal in the learning and trades, because women need to step up and do the things they need to step up and do to make a living, and men need to do whatever it takes to make a living. Also, in those countries, they're less likely to bloody have male teachers fucked around all the time. But where we go to places like Sweden, where we're supposed to have perfect gender parity, women choose to stay home more because they have their luxuries and their choices, don't they? And so they choose to do the girlier things. So the fact that we are number 42 means that we are number 42 in the privilege of women choosing what they would like to do with their lives. And they choose to do low-paid work, casual and part-time. We know all this. This is known by economists. This is known by everybody who's taken one look at the wage gap and taken the time to learn about it. Women's work. There's also this thing that you assume women's work. You know, I've been a cleaner. I did industrial cleaning, offices and workshops. I can't get back into cleaning. I got into cleaning because the person who employed me was desperate for someone and there was nobody else applying. I managed to get into cleaning. I can't get back into cleaning. I can't apply for those jobs. There's no point. Cleaners are women. Women run the cleaning businesses. I cannot get into cleaning. This is not women's work. I was very happy to clean. It suited my needs. I needed a job that just allowed me to go out, do some simple tasks, make some money and come home. Preferably in hours when my family didn't need me around. I was working nights, cleaning offices. I would do that again if I could get back in to that workforce. But I can't. This is not women's work. You have made it. Women have made it women's work. Women have made it women only. And it's bullshit. But also, compared to many other countries, Australian women do more unpaid domestic work and care. I don't give a flying fuck about this because I'm an at-home father. The work I do at home is not unpaid. It is my privilege to have somebody else supporting me while I choose to do that. Do not tell me about this unpaid domestic work shit. This is a privilege. I'm telling you now, the easiest job I have ever had is being an at-home parent. When I worked in trade, I started work at 15 cleaning safari vehicles, getting the mud and shit out of them, getting the windows spotlessly clean for the next herd of tourists to go in and pour it and put their faces against the glass. I have worked some shitty jobs, cleaning refrigerators out in pet shops. Fucking, you name it, I've done shitty jobs, I've worked in shitty places. The best job I've ever had. The one with the least responsibility, the least timelines to do anything, the least requirement to be on time for anything, anywhere, ever. The only thing I have to be on time for, now that my son started school, I actually have some timelines. And when my oldest son was in school, I had timelines. I had to get him to school, I had to get him home. There you go. My entire week built around two timelines a day, two deadlines a day. That's it. I wish I'd had it that easy in trade, in any industry I worked in. Unpaid fucking work is not unpaid domestic work. It is the privilege of being supported to stay home and watch daytime television or have coffee with the girls for most women. I've mentioned this in other videos, that I'm an outsider as an at-home father because I don't get invited to play dates at the women's house, at the other girls' houses, and I don't get invited to coffee at the cafe with the girls. But this is what mothers do with their days. They do not sit around home all day working. They play with their kids. They talk with their friends. Their friends come around for coffee. They talk for 4 hours a day. They do craft. They go out and don't shop. Whatever. This is a luxury life being paid for by somebody else. Now, if you're going to tell me about single mothers, I don't give a fuck. I really don't give a fuck. I don't give a damn about single mothers. I did not tell women to get pregnant and be single. I did not tell them to divorce their men. I did, and I understand some relationships don't work. But in a lot of cases, the world has just turned into a place where people can't put in the effort to hold relationships together. They don't put in the effort to learn how to work relationships. I don't give a fuck what you've created in your life that's fucking you up. Now, if you happen to be the unlucky person who's on the other side, of a bad relationship and it wasn't your fault it broke down. Normally a man, because most cases it's women filing for divorce. Then I have a little bit of sorrow for you. But what I hope for you is not that you remain single, because families and relationships are important. Unpaid domestic work, 311 minutes per day compared to OECD female average of 262, which is all absolute fucking bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. Let's assume you work a part-time job and you come home and you clean the house while your husband's at work. What the fuck do you think? You have the privilege of a part-time job so you can come home and potter around the house, or your husband has to keep working. This is a bullshit assessment. Plus, you never assess the work men do. Right? I do all the plumbing repairs. I do any maintenance around the place that needs doing. I do any heavy work that needs doing. Now compare washing the dishes, which I also do because I'm an at-home parent, and because we've got a roster system in this house for every adult. But let's assume you wash the dishes and your fella goes out and gets on the roof. Which of you is doing the worse job? Which of you is doing the harder job? Which of you should be getting more praise for the job they're doing? I don't know what he's doing on the roof, but sometimes you have to get on roofs. I've had to get on one recently for a neighbour. Unpaid fucking work. There is no such thing as unpaid work when someone else is supporting you. That's you making someone else your wage slave. Trust me, I got 2 of them. I'm doing all right. But I know that I would let my partners drop out of the workforce at any time, and I would take up the reins of going out and earning money if that was what was required, should they wish to do it, because I do not have that expectation of someone else looking after me and caring for me and providing for me financially. It is not an expectation as you seem to think it is. You seem to think it is an expectation. I have actually switched roles as the earner a couple of times earlier in our relationships when it was required. I've gone out and done part-time work, as, you know, the women you're claiming have it hard have done. So I've done all those things. It's not fucking unpaid work. This unpaid caring work supports society. This is not unpaid caring work, and yes, it does support society. It is not unpaid. You have a slave. It reproduces and sustains the workforce and saves the government from spending much more on public services such as aged care and childcare. I'm calling it on aged care. No, it doesn't really save us from that anymore. People aren't used to having old people around. But childcare? No, look, why aren't you paying for your own fucking childcare? You are the problem with our economy. You really are. The 2-income family put so much money in our households that wages have stayed unnaturally low. We may never return to a single income family ever again, not a healthy one, because you've fucked it up. You couldn't let your man stay home when you wanted to return to the workforce. No, that wouldn't have been right. I know this from the abuse that I've had as an at-home father over the years. Women telling me to go and work. That why aren't I supporting my family? What am I doing lazing around at home? A great deal of respect these women show for what they do with their lives as at-home parents. Yet unpaid care has long been taken for granted, its value discounted by governments as if it were a costless renewable resource like a magic pudding. You're making this choice. Just so you know, you are making this choice, as I made my choice. The cost in long lifetime earnings fall, yeah, but guess what? This life is so easy, I might live to a bloody 100. It's not unusual for my males in my family to drop dead at 65. But I don't have all the stress of the workforce and all that crap laying on my shoulders like I used to have. Women live longer. I wonder why, when life is so easy for them, when it's all provided for them. While their men die early. Why? Because they have to work for a living to provide that excellent lifestyle for the partner. The costs of a lifetime earnings kill men, fall privately on individual women and their families. It falls on individual men. The cost of lifetime early earnings falls on the shoulders of men. The men who go to work to support their families. The men who go to work to provide the lifetime earnings for these people who choose to work part-time or stay at home. An indicator is that near retirement, women's average super balance is less than half those of men. Older women are a fast-growing group of homeless in the country. Well, when we privatised our pension system, so the government didn't just pay us a low dividend on our taxes. Yes, we got thrown into a private system where we only get back what we put in. So if you're not putting in, that's your problem, isn't it? If you're not working one of those higher paid jobs that you could have been striving for, like a man will strive for a higher paid job, then you're not going to put as much in. Now, the fact that your super balance is less than half those of men, I'm not sure about that, but if that's true, well, you chose it. You chose to work part-time and chase men out of careers like teaching that are low paid, so that men would strive for larger earnings while you were taking all the teaching jobs which have a fairly average wage. You set this situation up. You created this situation. The fact that older women are fastest growing group of homeless in the country still does not tell you at all, does it, that men are the number one highest group of homeless people in the country. The fact that older women are growing in number as home representatives of the homeless does still not mean fuck all against the fact that you haven't given a shit about the fact that men are still and have always been the largest number represented by homelessness. The largest representatives of homeless people. They always have been. They are still. It's just a few more women are suffering that. Nicely framed to make it look like this is a women's issue. But I'm sorry, it isn't. The fact that your older women, they were single, they didn't have husbands that they could rip off their earnings, their retirement, their superannuation. No inherited in superannuation from a husband. Yet unpaid care is not counted in the GDP figures and has been largely invisible in economic policy. It is not unpaid. It is your choice. It is your choice to make somebody else your slave. But not so invisible now. The fact, idiots like you keep talking about it. I wish we had more economists in politics. The fact that care is an essential bedrock of the economy has become more obvious in these last few chaotic weeks. Has it? The Faced with a collapsing economy, the Prime Minister announced that he does not want Australians to have to choose between earning money and caring for their children. Those who are earning money, okay? One of my partners is out of work. She's going to get a payment from the government for, retaining her job when it finally comes through. I don't know how long that's going to take. But yes, they don't want people who were working to not have money. People who were working part-time and casual. They want them to be still with money in pocket, because otherwise they all go on unemployment benefits, don't they? So being able to provide a secondary benefit called a keeping working benefit or some shit like that means they don't go into the unemployment ranks. They don't bulk out the unemployment officers. We can give them some money, keep them ready to go back into the workforce when all this is over, not have them bulking out our services asking for unemployment benefits. And we've had a massive round of applications for that. So this is a way of slowing down the impact on other services. There are a range of reasons why this is happening, rather than anything to do with your idea of what it means to be a fucking unpaid worker. All of a sudden, childcare is an essential service. It always was. It always was. One of the things that was a big concern for us with this family was that if one of us went to work, if we all went to work, half of one of our wages would have just been put into paying other people to care for and raise our children. Now, we don't want other people caring for and raising our children, let alone only earning half of a part-time wage to pay for someone else to do that. A waste of time and money. So, it was decided early on that my wife is not a child person, that I am, and I decided to stay home. I'd done my time in the workforce. I've done plenty of years in the workforce. My wife was only just getting started in her career. It was decided to give her the go at the career and me the go at the kids. It's that simple. We make choices. This is how women do it. They make choices. In fact, normally they just expect those choices to go their way. Right? They just expect they are going to stay home and look after their children. They just expect they're going to be allowed to work a casual job while the kids are at school. A nice job that allows them to drop the kids off in the morning, go to work, and then knock off in time to go and pick the kids up from school. This is their expectation. This is their privilege. After years of being treated as a commodity, formal childcare is, for the moment, free. No. No. Someone still has to provide for me at home, okay? Until this crisis measure, Australian childcare was amongst the most expensive in the world, more expensive than private schooling. Well, so were we overpaying these women? Were we? Is this what you're telling me? These underpaid women in these underpaid careers were being overpaid because we were just charging too much for childcare. In a strictly financial sense, it wasn't worthwhile for most parents to put their kids in formal daycare for more than 2 or 3 days a week. I agree. Exactly one of the things that was discussed in our household. Many mothers have been working for no extra net income. Many more have had to choose between earning and caring for their children. And yes, this is what you're telling me. This is a choice. These mothers who've been working for no net extra income, why? Why didn't they choose to be the full-time employee in the family? Why do they treat working as if it's a hobby? Because by doing so, they are actually making those jobs less important. They will take less money, work less hours. Someone who was seriously looking for work, who needed it to provide for their family, is no longer going to be able to take that job and demand a decent wage. These are people playing in the workforce. They're not helping. Many more have had to choose between earning and caring for their children. Oh no, it's a choice to care for my children. I'm sorry, I'm a parent. One of the things that was just taken for granted when we had children is that we would care for them. I don't know why this is such an issue. Paid employment is not the only productive activity. No, it's not. I'm extremely productive without being paid. I, unlike the mothers around me, started a business, volunteered in my community, ran a radio station, owned a cinema and ran a cinema. I do construction work and engineering work. I've helped out elderly people in the community with repair work on their homes for nothing. I just was there to do it, so I did. I help older people with their computers when other people can't help. With their internet access. Recently, I just did conversions of some videos to digital formats to be sent overseas for some elderly people. You know, I mean, these are things that I do. It's quite productive. I don't get paid for any of it. But you're talking about staying at home, washing the dishes, and playing with your kids, aren't you? That's what you're talking about. Not quite the same thing. But the belief that has been obscured, the deeper truth that caring work, most of it's performed unpaid by women and in families, and also, yes, women get to make these privileged choices. It turns out, though, the clarifying lens of a global pandemic, the government can see its value more clearly. Bullshit. Bullshit. These women will return to their part-time jobs, fucking with our economy, fucking with our job market, and making their little choices to go and work for nothing, for no net gain. Indeed, it is striking how many of the jobs that are now seen as essential involve care, and how many of them are female-dominated. Who made them female-dominated? Is there a gender bias in these jobs? Does nursing try to exclude men somehow? Are there encouragement packages for men to go into nursing? Not coincidentally, they also pay well below the levels, the skills and qualifications that require them to be predominantly done by men. If they were predominantly done by men? So, if a male personage went into childcare, and I have a son old enough, he's in the workforce and buggered off from home, he would have gone into childcare. He really would have. He's gone into a better paid profession because he didn't have that choice. He really wanted to go into childcare. Something about my son, he's obviously like me, he likes kids. He can be very patient with them. Amazingly so. Can also draw his lines with his younger brother, but has that patience with kids. He would have gone into childcare. He could not break into it. He has gone off to earn more money because the choices were not his to make. Childcare workers, aged care and disability workers amongst the lowest paid workers in the country, so much so that during the last election Labor promised to top up childcare wages. Well, that's nice for them, that the government can just afford to give these people more money. Look, as I said, these jobs exclude men. They really do. The women run the childcare centres. The women won't employ men in the childcare centres. I mean, back in the 80s, you couldn't walk past a child in the street and smile at it without someone thinking you might be a pedophile. And as someone who gets along with kids, and look, I had things like my neighbours would trust me with my next door neighbour trusted me with his 3 daughters on more than one occasion to take them to things like the Melbourne show. And we had great days out. I brought the kids home safely, and we all waited for next year's show. But I could not smile at a stranger's kid down the street without someone looking at me, giving me filthy looks. It was ridiculous how excluded men can be from these professions. And it's not just the actual exclusion, because there is actual exclusion. It is the sense of exclusion. Even if I could break in tomorrow, even if there was an opening, I would feel that I was not truly welcome. Okay. Nurses and teachers earn the equivalent or less qualified professionals in similar occupations. 32% of police and 27% of ambulance officers earn more than $2,000 per week, compared to 10% of nurses and 12% of teachers. It doesn't actually seem that big a shift to me, and I don't think teachers should be put up against the police and nurses, or ambulance officers for that matter. In fact, I fully understand why an ambulance officer might receive more money than a nurse. My father, when I was 15, I brought this up in another video, I'm not afraid to say it. My father was in a motorcycle accident when I was 15 years old. He was sideswiped by a 1970s Ford Fairlane riding his motorcycle home from work. She just saw a gap in the traffic that happened to have a motorcycle in it, and she jumped for it. His pelvis was in 6 pieces. His right hand foot was held on by the Achilles tendon. His right shoulder was shattered to the point where it has something resembling a motorcycle chain that runs from the top of the shoulder halfway down the top of the arm. In that state, the ambulance officers took an hour to pick him up off the road because they could not work out how to move him. One of his legs, because the pelvis, shattered pelvis, was sticking out at such an angle they were concerned that if they tried to move it, they may have killed my father through the shock. The ambulance officers get to see that firsthand on the side of the road. My father worked for the ABC, our Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the TV radio, government run. He worked for the ABC. He used to go out with news crews, camera, audio, whatever. And most often he was audio. But he used to go out with the news crews. And they stopped out at a site one day where a motorcycle accident had occurred. And it just happened that one of the motorcycle riders had managed to decapitate himself on a road sign. Another news crew, commercial news crew, showed up, and they parked right beside the severed head and jumped out of the van, and one of the news crew ended up throwing up in the side of the road. But who do you think normally arrives at those scenes and deals with that situation? It's not nurses. Nurses are more like carers in a lot of situations. Yes, they see people die. Yes, I understand nursing as a difficult trade and difficult job. And yes, they do spend more time with these people. But they are not seeing the horrors that the ambulance officers see. The horrors that they don't get any proper respect for. You want us to respect the nurses, but you think we shouldn't give as much respect to the ambulance officers. You've stated that here. I don't disagree that nurses might deserve more money, but nursing again has wage levels. I have a cousin who made it to surgical nursing, which is the top ranks of nursing, and she was rolling in the loot. If you're a ward nurse or an unqualified nurse, you are going to make less money because essentially all you're doing is walking around checking bedpans, checking that drips are still going, looking at monitors to make sure that they're still monitoring, and then you wander off. And when it comes to someone needing critical care, there is a nurse who is better paid in that position doing that. So this distance in wages that you've brought up, that's ward nurses. This is a bullshit figure, a bullshit statistic. And it is now clear teachers do much more than educate the nation's children. No, that's what they do. That's what the government has legislated is the role of these people is to take our kids off us for 12 plus years. We have to do this by law. I've actually worked out that homeschooling's not that difficult, really. I could probably get away with doing this until at least year 10 before I have to start wondering whether or not I remember what I was up to at school with my maths 1, 2 and all the rest of that shit that I might have let slip just a little too much. But it is in legislation that our children will stay in school until year 12 unless they reach work age and have a job. This is not a matter of teachers being more than just educators. They are legislated to raise our children for us. We don't have a choice. We can homeschool, but they don't make that easy to get into either. One of the Prime Minister's stated reasons for keeping schools open has been to provide safe, supervised spaces for children and essential workers. Yeah, they did as long as they could, but I've been homeschooling for, well, I'm in it is 4 weeks now, and they won't go back for another 2 weeks, at which time they go back for 1 day a week, so I'll still be doing most of the school's work. I don't know. Look, in a society where women have the choice to work part-time, or the choice to stay home, or the choice to enslave someone else for their money, then I guess teachers are essential because those people need the free daycare. Yeah, the schools are daycare centres for those people. It's wonderful, isn't it? I'd be wise to pay our essential work as well. It'd be wise to pay our essential work as well. But teachers are not essential. They really aren't. They are handy. They are convenient. They do make an intelligent society, although I wonder sometimes at how intelligent our society is when it produces people from so-called universities that produce documents like this. In addition to its day job of educating, one expert female-dominated workforce is expected to provide childcare for another. So the women go to work as teachers, and there has to be childcare people to look after the teachers' kids. And now you want those female teachers who get a moderate wage to pay more for their childcare, or you would like someone else to pay more for their childcare so that they can choose to dominate teaching, which used to have more male participants. There was even a time in history when it probably had more than women, more male participants than women. So, yeah, what you're really saying here is someone else needs to pay for my childcare. That's it, isn't it? Because you're not really expecting these teachers to pay more for the childcare. I mean, you already say women work for a net negative, no net positive. Well, you're going to take that away from the teachers, are you? Alongside care workers, we also newly realised our debt to the public-facing workers in retail and food supply and our need to keep them safe and well. The 15-year-olds working the checkout at the supermarket. I understand there are women working the supermarket, but I'm just wondering how much you want the price of your produce to go up. And I worked supermarkets. I actually stocked shelves and was stock control for a while in a supermarket. I don't know that the wage was that bad. I earned less on an hourly basis working in a meatworks. Did you know that? that the meat that people produce in this country, the lowest income group in the country, are the people who cut up your cows for you? I made about $10 an hour cutting up cows. I made a damn sight more than that as a cleaner. In fact, it was one of the best paid jobs I've ever had is cleaning. The hourly rate is terrific. The hours are what is low. But that can be good too. But yes, I'm telling you now, there are worse jobs and male-dominated career paths. Even if schools and childcare centres remain open, many families will decide to care for their children at home. And many women in these families that won't remove the stressful daily jungle between time in paid work and time in care, it will move it to home and oh, fucking hell. Oh, the stress of having to look after your own children and have someone else wage slave for you. Apparently I'm supposed to read more about why Labor's childcare policy is the biggest economic news of the election campaign. Yeah, right. Labor's will to pay people government money to be in the workforce, to be in the private sector. That's nice, isn't it? You're going to pay me to be at home and raise my children? I'm wondering, because that would just be stupid. The choices we make are the choices we make. The people who go into childcare could just as easily go into nursing, could just as easily push on to be chemists or something. Maybe they could climb to doctors. I know it takes a special level of education to get that high. I never attained it myself. But there are levels above childcare worker which do not take a lot more to obtain. Point is, we all climb the wage level. We all climb the wage scale through our lives. And the people who don't, the people who think they stay childcare workers all their lives, they are the ones who have the privilege to do so. The coronavirus crisis has made brutally clear that care work, both paid and unpaid, there is no unpaid work, is fun. Well, I guess there is if you're me, but there's no unpaid work in the home when you have a partner who's wage slaving for you. Is fundamental to our economic and social survival. We should not continue to undervalue it or to free ride on those that do the most. For the record, right? I have volunteered on the committee of probably 12 organisations. I believe it's about 12. It might be more. For one of those, it was a radio station. I ended up the manager of the radio station. I was already the technical staff anyway with my trade background. I ended up producing 4 radio shows and producing one for someone else. I had 4 of my own, which I was presenting. Now, I did all of that, and I paid the station's bills at the end of the day. And my partner was the person who was providing the money that I could do that with. So this was still not unpaid work technically. Somebody was paying me to keep this this community radio station alive. Point is that I never meet mothers doing these things. Never, ever meet mothers doing these things. Arts organisations. I've served on committees for arts organisations. I've served on committees for disability organisations. I've served on the radio station. I've served on the committee generally as vice president. I don't like to be the guy at the top, but I like to have the executive power to help keep things rolling and make change. Mainly just keep the ball rolling on some organisations. But you never, ever meet mothers. Now, these are people with much the same timelines as I have up my sleeve, but it is always old women on these committees. It is mainly old women. There are very few men. Sometimes there are younger men, but there are very few men on committees, full stop. It is mainly older women. What do these mothers do? What do these people who get to make the choice to stay at home do with their lives? I have found the time to start a business, to volunteer excessively through my in the community. When our local cinema looked like it was going to close, I purchased that business for bugger all and built it up and turned it into something. I'd probably still be doing that if I'd got local government support with what I want to do with the building. I ran the local radio station until it couldn't run anymore, paying its bills, doing most of the work for it. Now, if I had the time to do all these things, I started a business and went on tour across most of northern Australia in the heyday of my business. If I had the time to do all this stuff, what are these people who get to choose to be at-home mothers doing with their lives, other than coffee dates? And you want these people to be highly respected. I'm sorry, I don't respect them. They're lazy. They're very, very lazy. We should arrange our workplaces to allow both men and women enough time to care for children and loved ones as well as earn a living. I guess you understand nothing about economics. I guess you understand nothing about how businesses operate and function, and that having people dedicated to a job for 6 to 8 hours a day is rather important. Because if you make them only work 2 hours a day, they never have the time to bog down and get into the work, to settle themselves in and really get the work done. The preference is to have people in a job for 8 hours. Give them 2 hours in the morning to fuck about and 6 hours to actually work. Yeah, I do like this idea that we should allow men into some workplaces. We really should. I really could be a teacher. It is something I really could do. But the prospect of being a male amongst children in a profession scares the living fuck out of me. And believe it or not, my business, the one I started as an at-home father, based around children. I work with kids. But I do not work in a classroom as a teacher does. I work around the parents and the children at the same time. I do not have the fear that I would have as a teacher. It would be nice if we could put some care and consideration into how we get men back into these career lines, instead of always demand we get a female Prime Minister. That lifts one woman to a position of authority. It does nothing to provide gender equality across the nation or across the workforce. And keep childcare free. It's an essential service. Well, choose to stay home. Choose to be an at-home parent and have someone slave for you. Because unless you want the government to pay for childcare out of your tax money, which will have to increase to pay this sector, do you get it? Do you understand that this is your choice? That you cannot simply expect the government to pay for you to make choices? You make the choices based on your own ability to do so. And if you can choose to work part-time or stay home, it is obviously a choice you can afford to make. Stupid idiots still coming up with the freaking wage gap. It's bloody annoying. Alright, I'm done. I've been the anti-theocrat. May gods remain fictional, and I will see you in the next one. If anyone ever brings up the wage gap with you, just tell them they're full of shit, won't you? See you all.